We are getting very close to being able to put conscious energy into that higher timeline of our ascension process. But in order to be able to do that, there are some very important things that we need to know about the controller's current abuse of our humanity. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interdimensional, interuniversal, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. So as our current timeline split continues to become more and more pronounced, I think we are approaching a point where we are going to be able to put conscious, awakened energy into shifting to that higher timeline. But in order to be able to do that, we need to be crystal clear about certain things regarding the controller's abuse of our humanity, so that we understand the difference between the two timelines and exactly what it is that we are trying to leave. So I want to start by talking about a number of things that we all need to be aware of regarding the controller's abuse of humanity and how that is really getting out of control. And it is time to end that, specifically in our own individual lives. The good news is this: we've kind of been in a position where there's been like a real mix for a long time, and many of us have been kind of waiting for this ascension to happen, for this timeline split to occur. But now it's getting so pronounced that we're at a point now where if we can become crystal clear about the actual difference between these two timelines, and we are consciously awake and clear, we're going to be able to put our energy, our focused energy, into that higher timeline, which will be incredible. The first thing we need to do is to become really clear about where the controllers are taking us and what they're actually all about. The simplest thing that we need to understand is that we as a humanity are in an abusive relationship with the controllers of this planet. And I think this is actually in a way kind of a new revelation, because up until the past year and a half, we kind of were thinking, well, things really aren't that bad, right? But now we have to wake up to how serious this abuse really has become, because now they are in the process of ramping up the fear more and more and driving far too many people into a truly miserable state of anxiety and despair. So the first thing to do is to understand this. It's really time to say enough is enough, and starting with your own life. And I'm going to talk about how to do that a little later in this video. Now, how we approach this is very important, because we need to do this in a way that strengthens us and not in a way that depletes our energy. So let's start with how we frame our situation. Before a person is able to leave an abusive relationship, they first have to realize that they're being abused. And then they have to become intolerant of being a victim. So here's what you need to know about abusers. They have an insatiable need to do harm. They exist in a complete and total reverse flow of energy. So no matter what they do, they never fulfill the need that they are trying to quell. And therefore, no matter how much hurt and pain they cause, it's never enough. And that's why you see in the case of the worst abusers, the victim is often ultimately killed. So that's kind of what it looks like on a micro individual level of abuser and victim. But on a larger planetary level, we're talking about a consortium of human, interdimensional, and extraterrestrials who are abusing our entire humanity on a mass level. They are following the exact same pattern of an individual abuser, and no amount of inflicted pain is ever enough. I think we can kind of see that happening, right? Now, victims often think that if they give the abuser what they want, the abuser will be satisfied and leave them alone. But that's not what happens. What this actually does is it signals to the abuser that they have power. And you can be assured that they will use that power against the victim again and again. And that's what we're experiencing all over the planet. Now, you might think that all of this abuse started about a year and a half ago with this health issue when that thing arose. But here is the fascinating thing. It actually started with 9/11. That was the first mass trauma that was used to basically, I think we could say, open the gates of hell and start the process of remaking this entire earth and our entire civilization. And now we've reached a level where they are literally intruding into our physical bodies, our ability to breathe, and our ability to move about. Now, have you ever wondered how that door got opened? How did they so easily cross that sacred barrier of individual sovereignty in one's own physical body? Well, it actually started in the realm of air travel. It started when people were willing to tolerate low-wage government workers x-raying them and putting their hands anywhere on their bodies in order to be given the right to travel by air. This, my friends, is when a massive line was crossed. This was the real turning point when people signaled to the controllers that their physical bodies were no longer off limits to these evildoers, that they were willing to hand over the sacred sovereignty of their physical bodies just to be able to get somewhere faster in traveling by air. And the controller's excuse was that it was all about 9/11 and about keeping everyone safe. Doesn't that sound familiar? Oh, there's this worldwide danger that could strike at any moment, meaning at the time terrorism. We can't see it and we don't know where it is. So in order to protect everyone else, you need to subject yourself to this physical body intrusion at the airport. So you're going to need to get x-rayed and have some low-wage government worker feel around on your body. That's how we keep everyone safe. So here's something really, really fascinating. Notice that the x-raying and the feeling of body parts that is now done in airports used to be reserved for medical procedures and medical practitioners. Do you see the parallels here? See, that was the beginning of the total dehumanization and subjugation of completely innocent people under the guise of keeping everyone safe. Now, I think what should have happened back then is that everyone should have immediately said the following. Well, then we just refuse to fly. Sorry, that ain't happening. You airport workers can just x-ray each other and feel each other up. Because we the people, we're not showing up for that kind of nonsense. See, that's when humanity should have drawn the line. I mean, do you really think it would have continued if everybody said, well, sorry, we're just not going to show up? No, it would have been over immediately. But that's not what we did. That was the turning point when we willingly handed over our bodies to the government to be abused. And now they've taken control of our ability to breathe, among other things that I'm not allowed to mention. This is why they can physically restrain us from working, from shopping, from being together, and from traveling, basically. That's why they assume, well, sure, we can put stuff in people's bodies, right? See, years ago when we all said okay at the airports, that's when we clearly showed that we were willing to give the government the right to do whatever they wanted to our physical bodies in exchange for the right to fly. So I wanted to share that with you to remove some of the mystery about why they're getting away with everything that's going on right now. See, the airports were the actual turning point. What it's ultimately going to lead to is them turning us into AI androids unless we kind of wake up and get a clue about what we ourselves are actually doing with our own consciousness. So now I want to talk to you about how the media itself has actually been weaponized. We've been programmed to believe for so long, and it's probably subconscious at this point, that the media is really about giving us important information. But it is no longer about information. It's actually about psychic manipulation and mind control. Now, it's important to remember that you always have the power to turn it off or turn it on. You have the power to calibrate your level of exposure to this dangerous mind control weapon. I'm talking about mainstream corporate media, so-called alternative media, and social media. It's all one giant integrated complex designed to push a toxic combination of fear and anger into our experience. Now, in case you might think that social media is just a lot of free-thinking humans sharing their thoughts, it actually isn't. Social media also includes a mixture of bots and paid humans whose role it is to create trends and to steer the conversation. It includes highly controlled algorithms designed to introduce and push certain ideas while burying other ideas. Now, here's what's so ironic. This giant media conglomerate actually uses fear to keep you coming back for more. And it's so out of control now that if you expose yourself to it too much, you could end up feeling like your life is in danger every single day. So why do they do this? I mean, what is their purpose? This is the really interesting part. Their real purpose is to enter your subconscious mind using fear. They keep that fear valve open, and then they plant certain images and stories deep inside of your mind. They literally can keep you coming back out of fear, where they repeat the same words and stories over and over and over again 24/7. You want to know why they want you to do that? You want to know why they have this whole setup? Because their goal is to enlist your consciousness to co-create with them the exact reality that they want to manifest. They are absolutely using the principles of the law of attraction. Now, anyone who tells you that the law of attraction is old news and it doesn't really apply anymore, they're not really telling you the truth or the whole story. See, if you believe that those laws and principles of the law of attraction are dead, which they're not, if you believe that, you're going to have no way to defend yourself against the evil use of these principles by these controllers to gain full control of your consciousness and your ability to create, because you won't understand what is actually going on. So let's review. The basic principles of the law of attraction are essentially rather simple. You implant a thought or a vision in your subconscious mind through repetition, and then you back it and you drive it in deeply with a strong emotion. Thus, you begin to energetically vibrate in unison with that vision, in which case you can then bring it into a manifesting reality. So the controllers use fear to get you fixated on a vision of the reality that they want to manifest. They use repetition in the form of the 24/7 news cycle and social media. So when you have all of humanity fixated, just completely fixated with strong emotion on the very same vision, that strong emotion being fear, and you have 24/7 continuous repetition of this vision being spoken and talked about, you can then begin to understand how all of this treachery eventually actually manifests in the physical world. See, one thing you want to notice about the so-called news, so much of it, and this is mainstream news and alternative news, so much of it is more about what might happen than it is about what has happened in the past. There's been a shift in how they speak. They're more speaking about future possibilities and how things should be and how things might unfold and what might happen. There's a lot of that kind of rhetoric. So that's how you can see that they're actually doing what I'm describing in using the law of attraction to implant negative visions, highly negative ideas and thoughts into the collective mind of humanity, using the strong emotion of fear to get us to co-create that vision in reality. So they're basically using the internet to access your mind and steal your creative energy. Then they use your faculties of consciousness to co-create exactly what they want. Now, we can't control what 7 billion people are doing in regards to all of this, but we can certainly control ourselves. So it's extremely important that we understand what they are doing using all forms of media so that we can maintain the sovereignty of our own minds and our own consciousness. So what I suggest you do is take in only as much as you need to stay informed. You don't need the constant repetition of the same exact thing. The most important thing is to stay very self-aware when it comes to your own consciousness. You need to know when to turn off that spigot of fear and learn to recognize when you're actually being manipulated rather than informed. The moment that you feel your emotions starting to engage with it, it's time to shut that door and walk away. So let me share with you a simple way that you can do this. Whenever you do look at the media, you can think of it this way. Imagine that you're looking for a brief moment into the window of a giant mind control machine just to find out what the next thought is that the controllers intend to introduce into the collective. And then know exactly when you need to turn away from this machine before it can psychically grab you and get you mesmerized under its control. Now, the reason that I'm talking so much about the media is because this is the controller's chief weapon of abuse that they deploy against us. The media engages in a form of psychological abuse and gaslighting designed to make us believe that our lives are terrible and that we're always in danger. And like all good abusers, they're going to the next level by now trying to separate us from family and friends. They now want us to hate and to fear each other so that we end up feeling just completely helpless and alone. So the antidote to the media's abuse is really very simple. What we need to do as individuals is to cut our psychic cords to the media, stay as fully present in your own life as you possibly can. Because their goal is to take you away from your life and make you believe that you're on the way to some terrible things and terrible experiences. Realize that every time you pick up your phone and click onto any type of media, you are opening the door to a toxic stew of fear and anger. Now, I want you to imagine something really, really interesting. Imagine how life would be if for 2 entire weeks, all of the media outlets in the entire world were turned off. Imagine if there was no news and no social media of any kind for 2 whole weeks. And if you want to go even deeper with this imaginary exercise, imagine as well that all of the TV shows, all of the movies, all of those entertainment things were also turned off for an entire 2-week period. In other words, we're talking about 2 entire weeks around the world with no mind control whatsoever. What would you do in that case? If you really want to give this exercise some meaning, get out a journal and get some paper and just start to write down what you think you would do during those 2 weeks. Here's an idea. If you feel inclined, write in the comments below what you think would happen or what you think you might do if something like this were to occur. I'd love to know what you guys think. But whatever the case, I think it would be a great idea if you actually get a journal or some paper and do this exercise for yourself. Because here's what you're going to find out. In doing this exercise, you will probably show yourself exactly what you should be doing right now. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if everything you write down actually amazes you, and it might even make you feel truly happy. I think you're probably going to get better instructions for yourself from doing this little exercise than you could ever get from a psychic or a counselor or anybody else outside of you. And you know what else you're probably going to discover? I think that what you're going to discover is that you have just provided yourself with all of the ways that you can become much more present in your own life. And when you look at that page and you recognize the value of what you've written down, you might even find yourself highly reluctant to give that up and turn yourself back over to the mind control machine of fear and anxiety and the sheer misery of taking on everything that the controllers and their minions continue to throw at you. So you just want to write all about it in kind of a freestyle, relaxed sort of way. You know, like, gee, maybe I could actually get that extra sleep I need, or maybe I could call a friend and just get together. Maybe I could do some kind of gardening without my mind being filled with all kinds of garbage that it took on from the media. Or maybe I could get into that project that I've been putting off because I've been so overwrought with fear and anxiety and just too exhausted to even get started on it. Here's something really funny to think about. I mean, what would you have to argue about with friends and family if it were not for the media? Think about that. How many people destroy their relationships, argue about everything, can't get along at all because of the media? I mean, that's really crazy. So we need to wake up to the fact that this is nothing more than a gigantic mind control machine that we actually have the power to turn off. We can take back our energy, we can take back our consciousness, and we can start living our lives in a much more positive way. So firstly, I recommend that you try this exercise by writing down what you would do if all of their access points to your consciousness were turned off worldwide for 2 entire weeks. No TV shows, no media, no social media, and no movies for 2 entire weeks. So yeah, basically no mind control for 2 whole weeks. And then consider taking what you wrote as your own good advice. And as I said, feel free to share some of what you think would happen in the comments below. In fact, you can feel free to come back and leave another comment after you try this exercise and share what you learned. Now, why am I making such a huge point of all of this? Going back to what I said at the beginning of this video about how we could be approaching that time where we can actually put positive conscious energy into that higher timeline. Well, here's why I'm bringing this up. If you can understand the magnitude, the massive nature of how they're using the internet as a gigantic mind control weapon, and if you understand that you have the power, the actual power to turn that off, see, we need to turn it off. And I don't mean completely forever, because I think I already shared with you how you can just kind of look through that window and tap in to see what's going on without it taking you over. What that does is that gives us perspective on the abuse, on the level of abuse, because most of this abuse really is starting with this mind control machine. See, we need to break free of the hold that this thing has on all of us for a very important reason. We have got to become fully present in our bodies and fully present in our own lives. That is step 1 if we're going to be able to, at some point here, put fully conscious energy into moving into that higher timeline. We need to be truly present. And we can't be truly present if we're under this mind control machine. So I wanted to make this video to help you recognize how it works, what the abuse is, how all of this stuff got started, so that you have a chance to get full perspective on what you can do to cut your cords, cut your energy, remove their access to your psychic environment, to your consciousness, which will then enable you to become present in your life, because we need to be present. We need to have our feet on the ground. We need to be awake, aware, and those fully present beings of light that we truly are, so that we can start to co-create a higher timeline and move into that higher timeline for those of us who are ready to do so. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it interesting, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would find this information helpful. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I am here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and high vibrational energy, and I so look forward to seeing you in the next video. Namaste.